Alright, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our last lecture on learning the methodology of solving case studies. I hope so far you have been able to access those links that we have talked about earlier on in our previous lectures. And now in this lecture we're going to talk about some real online project where you could apply both methods of applying the tools that we have discussed. One is under deductive method and the other one is under inductive method. But before we actually go about doing that, there is another mix of strategy. A tool that is applicable is going to be discussed in today's lecture before we actually go online and do the practice case study. And that is a new method which is the hybrid of deductive method and inductive method. So we'll talk about it before that. In our last lecture, what we did was the understanding how the application of inductive method is carried out to solve the nuances, the complexities of a case study. And there we talked about how to understand a question, how to identify areas of focus, and how to break up in segments that question, which is a challenge or a problem statement. So in today's session we are going to do exactly the same thing but under a new method, as I said earlier, that is the abductive method. Abductive method. So we'll talk about that shortly. Here you go. Abduction. What is this? It's the combination of deduction plus induction. So now, what happens is that when we talk about deductive method, it's a one-way approach where teacher comes up with the theory, the application of that theory, and understanding of that theory, which is conveyed to the student. And then students are supposed to apply those learnings to a problem or a case study. Whereas inductive method is such a method where we actually talk about letting the imagination of students loose so that they can work on their own and come up with their own analysis. And the role of teacher is to facilitate the students during discussion so that they can actively participate in problem solving, in group discussion, in brainstorming. So then each student or each group of students would come up with their own separate way of looking at those things, those perspectives, and a different solution would be there. So that is another way, which is we call first looking at the trees and then looking at the forest later, where you start with a problem statement. So that is about inductive method. And now a new method which is a hybrid or a mix of both methods, that is deductive as well as inductive method, is called abductive method, doing cases by abduction. And generally what happens is that when it comes to a real world scenario, when we talk about real problems, when you talk about real life problems and practicing those problems with these case study solving methodologies and approaches, then it's commonly found that it's a bit natural to apply both methods, abductive as well as inductive, and this is quite natural, and they go hand in hand with each other, fortifying each other, validating each other, and building upon each other. So that is the reason why a new way of methodology has been described here, and its essence has been captured on this slide that you can see right now, where we talk about a series of steps which are related to either of these methods, abductive or deductive and inductive. So the first step that you have to look into is state the problem. And the second step that you have to look into is develop a framework for analysis. And the third step is identify key issues. Fourth one is perform analysis. Fifth one is draw conclusions. And the sixth one is make recommendations. So now it's the hybrid approach that is taking into account the dynamics of both methods. state the problem. We have already done this problem stating exercise, how to develop that problem and how to break it down into different pieces to identify different areas of focus and then see how they are interrelated with each other. And then develop a framework for analysis. From there, actually, you take into account the causes and effects and see how these problems are interrelated with each other. And that is always available through the detail of the case. And the annexure part of it, which is the after the end of the case, there are some additional documents attached. That is called the annexure part of it. Over there, you can find relevant information, which really would help you in identifying how these factors, cause and effects, are interrelated, and how that framework of analysis can be evolved from there. Framework of analysis talk to you about your parameter within which, the boundary within which you have to carry out your analysis in terms of the external forces, in terms of internal forces, in terms of the constraints given in the case, and so on. And then identify key issues. So once you have developed that level playing field, then you would do what? You would actually identify what are the main factors, what are the major key areas, what are the major key influencers that are influencing, or what are the major areas which you need to look into, because they actually are influencing the other areas based on which you have to come up with your analysis, thereby recommendation, and based on that you have to come up with a solution which gives a solid base for recommendation. So that is really important when we talk about, if you talk about a problem, then we need to understand what are the sources of influences. If you recall the earlier examples we have been talking about, Mohsin Hamid example. So in that Mohsin Hamid example, what was the key issue? Yes, there were more than one key issues. One was a key issue that was quite relevant, and that was a major key issue. That was the absence of warranty card. Warranty card was never given to customer. That was a key issue. But what were the related issues to that issue? It is about serving the addressing the customer complaints when the customer calls and tells about the disruption in the internet, and then you, instead of addressing the customer's complaint, come up with this that, sir, you have to pay us 300 rupees for that service charges, and you go, why? I mean, I've purchased that, and there was a warranty that I was told about. So then the caller on the other end, the person on the other end says, okay, sir, do you really have that warranty card? And you go like, well, I was never given a warranty card in the first place. So now here you can identify lots of different sub-key issues, basically, which are interrelated with each other. And again, I've told you about that. If you apply this framework of asking 5 whys, which are interrelated to each other logically, then you would say, why was not the warranty card placed there? And the second question that would be flowing out of it immediately would be, why was the person not carrying the warranty card with him when he visited the client's place? And the third one would be, why was he not given the warranty card? And then the question leads back to his manager, and from there it leads back to the area manager, and from there to the policy of the company, whether it is being properly adhered to, followed or not. So basically, this is the way of identifying key issues. And here you would notice you can apply, and you can be applying both ways, abductive, deductive and inductive under abductive method. And then about perform analysis, and here you would identify cause and effects in terms of how they are related to each other and how they are impacting each other, because there are certain causes which are easily identifiable and others are not. And that's the beauty of cases, because it encourages students to go deeper than just merely scratching the surface. And then you could come up with lots of details that might be concluded from the information given in the case, and that may not necessarily be in the explicit or clearly given information, but you can assume, because the short side of the case, which is quite realistic as well, that they just don't give you all the necessary information. Even if they try to give you all the necessary information, still there might be certain areas which might be left out. And in these situations, you have to come up with your own assumption, with your own possibly logically well-grounded, logically sounding assumptions within the parameter, within the framework of that case details given to you. So based on that, you do the analysis, perform analysis, and you would see how cause and effect factors are related to each other, how they are impacting each other, and from there you would come to know how this case can be addressed. And when we do the analysis, we also come up with different scenarios, basically. Okay, this is one case, this is another case, this is the third one case, fourth and fifth, and so on, as the case may be. Why? Because when we talk about problem-solving approach, then you look at problem from all different angles. So they all become different scenarios, basically. So that's how you carry out your analysis, and from there you would come to know how they are interrelated with each other. So in the case of Mohsen Hamid, we'll come to know it's just not about the issue of warranty policy, but it's also about adherence. Adherence with the corporate practices, with the corporate policies which are not duly followed, and how you can come up with a proper following of those policies is the main underlying part of a solution. Because when you talk about addressing the customer grievances, you would also talk about these should not recur or happen again in the future. So for that, you need to come up with a sound practice, a sound policy, where at every step of the way, those corporate policies are duly followed. So in that case, the warranty cards and customer should be informed in advance should there be any change in policy, and so on. So these kind of aspects would relate to performance of analysis. And then comes draw conclusions. From performance of analysis, then you would come to know how things are, how those forces are actually impacting the problem. And you can then gauge the intensity or the significance of how these factors are impacting the problem. Why? When I say how, you want to actually narrow down to the grassroots of the problem, because once you identify and address those problem issues, and you have to get down there either by inductive method or deductive method, but you have to get down to the root cause of the problem. Some cases provide you with that sort of analysis where you can get down to the problem quite easily, and other cases would involve you in such a situation where you have to go by both deductive and inductive side by side, so that you can expose and surface that problem realistically, so that you know that is the main root cause of the problem. And the underlying reason why when we talk about cases and why we lay such an important emphasis on understanding the case study methodology is because we want to train our managers, and we want them to be good investigators, because a good manager is the one who can get down to the cause of the problem and identify that problem. which is actually the source of origin of that problem. So that is the reason why we talk about logical thinking, analytical thinking. We talk about reading between the lines. We talk about creating assumptions, logically sound assumptions, so that we can see how these things can be addressed. And that is the sign of a good manager. So when you are able to address these issues, then you would be able to come up with some conclusions, and those conclusions could be based on inductive observations as well as deductive observations. The difference when you would come to apply these concepts and you would come up with different conclusions would be that you would see in certain situations, for example, again, if we refer back to Mohsin Hamid's example, and after you have performed the analysis and now you are actually, based on cause and effect, drawing conclusion, and you would come to know, okay, there are certain things which are easily seen through deductive approach. For example, customer is not happy. And the general rule is that customer is not happy because the service is not good. So the problem statement given to you was the customer complained about the warranty issue, and from there you came to know that the customer is not happy. So when you look at the bigger picture, which is that the customer is not happy, and you narrow it down to the main root cause of the problem of his being unhappy, it would be because there is a warranty issue. So here you have applied the deductive method, basically, where you have started from the general common understanding of customer dissatisfaction with their product, and then you have been able to narrow it down to the root cause of the problem. And that root cause of the problem is not the performance issue, it's not the pricing issue, it's not the service issue, it's rather after sales service warranty related issue that you have to figure out. So now you have identified this problem, right, which is the root cause of the problem. So as a good manager, you would apply the best practices as to deal with warranty issues, so that you can create the satisfaction level back to the normal level. Inductive way, when you look at this issue that the customer not being happy because of the warranty issue, then you would actually look into this problem even more closely, and you would come to know, okay, how the dynamics are playing their role there, how they are playing out in terms of customer versus warranty. And there you would come to know that this is a process that has to be followed and which was not followed. And you would come to know, okay, what is that process that was not followed? And from there you would come to know, okay, these are certain things that should have been kept in mind earlier. Had there been any problem, then you would not have faced that problem in the first place. And what are those things? Maybe a proper procedure was not followed. And then you will see, okay, how you can devise a proper procedure for that, because you are talking about solving that problem first and then looking at the bigger picture later. And then you will look at this by devising a proper sound policy, so that these warranty related guidelines, matters and issues are properly adhered to, and they should be properly followed by every employee of the organization. And then you look around and see some of the best practices prevailing in some industries where they have a lot of or huge interaction with customers all the time. And in that case, what I did was actually I looked into certain hotels, and from there I came to know how they have been able to apply these kind of policies that ensure adherence to good quality standards and service standards. From there you would be able to come up with a best practice which then you would apply, and from there you would actually apply at the corporate bigger level, the big picture basically. So that's how you could do the analysis part. But under abductive method, you might want to combine these two approaches and take them along side by side, and you would then be going back and forth between these two approaches to substantiate and to validate that you are getting the accurate understanding and you're not going in the wrong direction. So basically, when we talk about drawing conclusions, then we tend to validate those conclusions based on the small picture, bigger picture, and bigger picture and smaller picture. Both ways we actually try to validate, test it, and seek if whatever we predict, whatever we conclude is exactly what this case is all about, or what is the problem statement is. Basically, it's quite related to that. So you don't go off the track. And then based on drawing conclusion, you make recommendations, and recommendations, by making recommendation, you need to first understand the basic principle. The basic principle is that we should recommend something which is effective, which should be long lasting, which should involve less legwork or spade work and more output, meaning it should involve less utilization of resources and give more output, because less utilization of resources and giving more output will really help the company to identify the problem areas and address those areas effectively and efficiently. This is also what we call doing more with less. Do more with less, meaning that you give more output with less input, because you use those inputs quite efficiently. Effectively, meaning you achieve the desired result, whereas efficiently means that you achieve the desired result with the minimum wastage of resources. So when it comes to choosing between efficient versus efficiency, being more effective versus being more efficient, you would always go for being more efficient, because that involves the smart way of using your resources to achieve the desired result, which is doing more with less. So this is the recommendations part, where you actually come up with different sets of recommendations. In the case of Mohsin Hamid, you would recommend, you would go with the triple R concept, where you talk about first regret, you would apologize, meaning, then you would give the reason, meaning you would explain the reason to the customer, and the third thing is you would reward the customer. The other scenario might be you would come up with a learn principle framework that you have been able to adapt from hotel industry, where they say L stands for learning about the problem, E stands for empathizing about the problem, that how would you feel if you were in the shoes of a customer. So that's how we call it. Okay, how would you feel if this had happened to you? So empathizing, meaning feeling it the way that the customer has experienced. Then you would be able to understand what customer is saying. That's what we that is what we call empathy, empathizing. And then is apologizing. By feeling how customer is feeling, then you would tender apology, and then you would react, because now you have to, based on that apology, now you have to make amends. You have to address the customer's concerns, grievances. So then you would react, and then after that, after addressing the customer concerns, you would report it back to your top management, that what was the problem, how you handled that problem, and what was the outcome of that, so that for future purposes and references, this can serve as a guiding document, a guiding example for others. So this is another way. And the third one was about one of the best practices, again adapted from one of the hotels chains, and that was about not just simply putting forward saying I'm sorry. It would be more effective if you make it more personalized, if you make it more resonating with feeling, resonating with customers' feeling by saying that please accept my apology, and then allowing those line managers, the frontline managers, the frontline technicians to come up with this deciding policy, this deciding ability to take action right then and there to address the customer grievances by actually having access to some budget so that you can address the problem right then and there. So this is another one. So out of these three recommended strategies, you would go for one, and you must argue good enough way so that the top management would buy your recommendation, would accept your recommendation. So that's how you actually come up with the recommendations, and then you go with the one that is the most desired one. So basically that's we have explained the abduction method, under which we talk about deduction plus induction, and they are both mixed together, and then the conclusions are made. Then generally during case study, there's hardly any rule that you have to apply a deductive method or inductive method. It is just purely for understanding purposes. And the more you apply both methods, the more realistic you get to the real issues of the problem, and you get closer to the real issues and be able to understand those issues in a more clear manner, and be able to understand the nuances of and complexities of these, and then you would be able to come up with a very logical, practical solution. So that is the thing, that we don't talk about analyzing cases in the dark. Whatever we say, we link it back to some justification, whether that be coming from deductive method or inductive method. And for each step that we take in the case study analysis, we go back and validate that so that we go in the right direction. So this is basically the whole approach to understanding the case methodology. Now we talk about a case study project where we would apply both methods to a real life and online project which is posted on the website with one of the world's leading consulting, management and consulting firm. Management consulting firm is is itself an industry that is more focused on coming up with management related problem and solving those problems and challenges faced by different organizations. Because organizations are busy with their day-to-day activities, so they don't have enough time to look around and see how competition and external forces impacting their competitive landscape. So management consultants, they act like doctors. What doctor to a patient is what management consultants to different organizations. Companies suffering from, let's say, revenue loss, low productivity of employees, or maybe about poor performance of its products. They want to find a solution, so they hire management consultants, and they carry out the real analysis, a real case study based analysis through their analytical approaches, and then they come up with different solutions, and based on that they suggest a holistic recommendation to the management. So they follow essentially all those steps that we have discussed in our previous slides. So this exercise would actually give you a hands-on experience in understanding the concept, how business issues are understood and how they are dealt with. So this is a case study project as you see on your screen. Here's the project detail below, which makes a part of your work on mastering the art of case study. So now before we actually talk about it, there are some instructions that you have to follow, and I've laid down those instructions over here for you. Number one, go to bain.com and explain in your own words what this company does and what the phrase management consulting means. So you would be able to understand this company better, about its operations, about the concept management consulting, which is itself a billion-dollar industry today. And they hire business graduates, MBAs, who are sent to different organizations to recommend strategy for their improvements. Number 2, look up the phrase case interviews on Google and explain in your own words why and for whom case interviews are offered. So understand the concept of case interview. Case interview is a concept that is based entirely on case study methodology, and students are tested through case interviews during a case study session, and they are asked a series of different questions based on a case study provided to them, and they come up with their analyses, they come up with their analytical framework based on which they recommend a solid strategy for a company. And the third thing is about case study project, is that you go to this link given here, which is actually an access to an online case study that is for you to practice on. And answer all the questions by giving your reasoning as well. We'll do that. As a management consultant, your task is to help this client with regard to making operations, marketing, and new product decision. So your answers should reflect comprehensive understanding. You can research any specific word or concept on Google wherever necessary. So no page limit. So for that, basically, when you go to that website and over there you go through different questions, you must understand the meaning of the question, and then before you answer the question, you must understand each answer choices given, and then we'll move on. All right, so we are here on online case study project, which you can see on the screen. It's practice case 2, and its name is office vending services. What I will do, I'll walk you through a couple of questions and help you understand how to answer those questions. And you will take lead from there and do the rest on your own. And that's the main purpose of this session, which is our last session, so that you can do practice on your own whenever you feel comfortable. And the idea that you have to remember is the more practice that you do, the better you would understand this concept, and the more closer you get to this challenge of case study, and you would be able to deal with it in a very realistic manner, which is the hallmark of any business graduate, because we don't have any other skill except to master the understanding of different real-life business issues, challenges, and problems, and that's why we are called the master of business administration. So with that background, and we'll start this now. As I read the lines on the screen, thank you for taking the time to work through this practice case. They are actually thanking you in advance. We hope you find it useful in your preparation. Basically, this case is for those who want to join this company, and since this company is a management consulting company which applies business case study methodology to a real-life business-related problems. So they assess the newcomers, the prospective employees, on the basis of case study methodology. And this process is called case interviews, where a case study is given, and then students are the prospective business employees, the management consultants, are asked different questions to assess their analytical ability. Keep in mind that this practice case is a bit longer and asks more questions than a typical case. However, we want you to see the various types of questions that may be asked of you in a real case interview. While the analytics section should ultimately generate correct numerical answers, the conclusions that you draw are neither right or wrong. So from there we come to know there isn't any sure, short, clear-cut way of saying this should be the absolute correct strategy. It's more tilted towards inductive way of approaching different problems and issues, where each one of you would assess the problem in their own way of assessing. The solutions that we provide are simply one possible recommendation. So here we talk about the recommendation part based on the solution that you select from the given answer choices. Feel free to give us feedback if you think there are ways we could make this interactive case even more useful for you at recruiting@bain.com. So there's always room for improvement, and they look for your feedback to make this experience even more worthwhile. Before we start this case, remember one thing I would like to focus on, that is on the fourth line, which is while the analytics section should ultimately generate correct numerical answers, the conclusion that you draw are neither right or wrong. So before you start answering those questions, you might have this temptation to know in advance the correct answer. So don't do that, avoid that temptation, because here the purpose is not to come up with the right answer, but to understand the whole process, that how things are analyzed, how that thought process it is put to work. And from the learning of this practice case, you can see how you would be able to apply these learnings to some real cases given to you during your semester in different courses. So you would be able to assess those issues and problems in light of how you have been able to do here. So that is a very fruitful way of practicing and learning. So bear with me as we move forward. And here's the overview of the situation given. Office Vending Services Incorporated is a company. It could be a fictitious name, or maybe its name has been replaced, the original name has been replaced with this name. And the situation given to you is Office Vending Services is a global leader in vending machine services for small and large businesses. So this company, which is an incorporated company, Office Vending Services Incorporated, is a market leader. They provide a full service to their clients. Now, they are providing full service to the client. Vending machines, you must have heard about vending machines, have not seen one of them. It is when you insert a coin and get something out from those machines, like chips, pack of chips, a beverage, or anything like that. So these are the vending machines. But I've seen that that machine may be at the airport or some other public places. This includes installing machines at client site, refills and repair. When things run out, then you refill them, or something goes out of working order and you repair it. They collect revenues only from snack sales. Snack sales meaning the fast food, and choose the variety of products they sell in their vending machines themselves. And they decide on their own what kind of variety they want to introduce or sell through their vending machines. So what's the challenge? Complication. Over the past few years, their profits have dropped. Wow. Now that's the problem. Significantly, and the CEO is unable to figure out why. So they have hired you, so to say, and they want you to tell them where things are going wrong and how they can address them. The CEO asked Bain to identify the root causes of the problem and propose actionable solutions. Again, root causes, you're going down to the root cause of the problem, be it the deductive way or the inductive way or both abductive ways. You have to actually come up with how to analyze this issue. Now, the question number one, you would start to tackle this problem by looking at which factors. Now the first question asks you, how are you going to start looking at this? The first choice given is industry trends, then the 5-year market value evolution, fixed and variable costs, revenues and costs, and competitors' action. And mind you, don't think that only one could be the right answer, but the answer that is considered to be the right answer is the one that is more logically argued, that makes sense in terms of its logical authenticity, in terms of its logical way of understanding, and how closely it's related to the problem at hand, which is decline in revenues. So if we go with, let's say, and don't get fixated on the correct answer, it's about the understanding of the thought process that has gone through it. So let's say if we talk about industry trends, let's suppose we say here we want to first look at the industry trends, because we want to look at something which is directly or indirectly affecting the company. So you hit the button continue. So here it's industry trends. Why? Now if you relate it back to deductive approach, where we look at the bigger picture first and the smaller picture later, so the decline in profits might be because of your own mistakes or because of something that is outside your control, your market, economy, your competitors, your target market, or the market in general, nature of economy, and the kind of economic performance or economic health in that particular country and so on, or that region maybe. So here we'll see the logic behind it. Bain's answer is industry trends. If you have chosen some other answer, don't get discouraged. It might be correct as well, but you have to understand the logic that goes into it. So if it's industry trends, then what's the logic behind it? Using an external internal framework will help us determine whether our client's profitability problem is industry-wide or unique to them. So here you are trying to identify the problem that this company is facing is just only limited to them, or it's the problem that the whole industry is facing. If it's internal, we'll look at our client's revenues and costs to isolate the problem. Here again, separating and isolating the cause and effect. And here you are applying the inductive method. Earlier, looking at the bigger picture was the deductive method, and here inductive method. So both are going side by side. If it's external, we'll need to investigate the cause of the industry decline, which might be because of consumer trends, substitutes. Maybe there's some new substitute product and people have stopped using that product for that better alternative available to them, which is a new product and much better product. That is called a substitute product. For example, the snacks, if you talk about the beverages, they have been replaced by energy drinks. So this is a substitute product, right? Chips have been replaced by a multitude of different varieties of with different tastes and flavors and shapes of chips. You know, it's no longer used to be that old style chip only. You know, now you have come up with different flavors with different shapes and so on. It's more straightforward to look into external factors first. Now, from here you're getting the rule that it's easier first to look at the external factors. That is the market and overall profit pool growing, because it's easier for you to look at the industry factors, industry-related factors in your external environment, because the reports on those external factors are easily available, because there are lots of market research firms, there are watchdog agencies, economic watchdog agencies. There are many other agencies which keep their finger on the economic pulse and measuring the impact of those policies and measures on the overall health and functioning of different industries. It is more straightforward to look into external factors first, that For example, is the market and overall profit pool growing? Have there been new recent entrants to the market? It might be because your profit is going down because of new competitors joining, and because of that there's more intense competition, and there's a decline in price because everyone wants to sell their own products, so they are offering huge discounts. That might be one of the reasons. Therefore, looking at industry trends would be our likely first step. So that's how you have justified the reason why you would go with this approach of first looking at the industry step. And we move on to the next question. And here you can also see on the screen the external internal framework given. They have divided them, and you can apply this rule to any other case where you are faced with analyzing your external or internal environment. And I hope you would be able to do it in a much better way given the different and other specifics of that case study, and you would be able to analyze the external internal environment in a much better way. Now the second question asks you to identify if the declining profitability is an internal issue of our client or if it's an industry trend. John, the partner on your case, asks you to contact our information department called Bain IS Information Services. Now your partner at Bain Company, who's serving as a consultant to this Office Vending Machines Incorporated, you've got a partner over there, John, who has asked you to contact their information services, who has asked you to contact your own information services, which is Bain Information Services, to identify if the declining profitability, जो profit उनका decline हो रहा है उसकी आपकी client की company का, क्या वो is an internal issue of our client or if it is an industry trend. तो ये क्या है, क्या वो उसका internal issue है या industry trend है? They propose several reports that might be of help. तो आपके जो internal जो department है information systems arm है बेन का, उसने आपको जो है different reports हैं उनकी तरफ refer किया. The client does not want to spend more than 3,000 for this analysis. And for that you would charge your client for that analysis, because आपकी जितनी भी market analysis reports हैं वो free में थोड़ी आप client को देंगे. You would definitely charge. तो इसमें आप कितना charge कर रहे हैं? $3,000. Please select the report you want to purchase. अब आप कौन सी report purchase करेंगे? Industry report 1, industry report 2, consumer insights or analyst report. Again, these are the information given. Industry report में आपको क्या given है? Total market sales by origin last 5 years period. Industry report 2 में total market sales by player last 3 years period. Customer insights report में क्या है? Hire 5 temporary employees to conduct consumer interviews over the phone. Analyst report में क्या है? Detailed analysis of every player, past sales and profit evolution, last 10 years report. So आप इसमें से which one would you go for? Or obviously you would go for that one which includes holistically everything into it, right? If you go with this analyst report, we'll see what the right answer is, and then we'll talk about its justification. And the right answer is analyst report. And here's the justification. Your objective is to identify the driver that really matters. आपने देखना what is the real cause behind that. You need to know about the market. Have total market sales and the overall profit pool gone up or down in recent years? So you have to look into that. Then you have to look into how have different competitors' profitability evolved over the past decade. Okay, how your competitors' profit has been transformed over the number of years before. Is everyone facing price pressure and or increased costs? क्या price pressure और जो increased costs के जो challenges हैं, क्या वो सिर्फ limited only to you or they are also impacting your competitors? तो उसको देखने के लिए जो है आपको एक more holistic report चाहिए जो कि analyst report है. The analyst report includes all this information. So here you can also get this takeaway, a key learning, that whenever it comes to analysis, you would go for analyst reports. You would go onto Google and search for analyst reports on a particular industry and see what you can come up with. Now, question 3 here we talk about based on information purchased by information systems at Bain. Let's look at the market profit trend for snack sales from vending machines. अब यहाँ पे आपको graph given है basically, or these kind of things would be given in the extra part of a case study when it's given to you in a printed form. What would be your first conclusion based on this information? Write your answer here. तो questions में क्या basically, let's look at the market profit trend for snack sales from vending machines. आपने देखना है market profit trend for snack sales. अच्छा जी, market profit trend for snack sales और market profit trend for snack sales, ये क्या लिखा है नीचे? Profit margins have remained constant over time, which means जो profit margins है अगर वो 15% है, 10% है or whatever, they remain the same. 10% है throughout the year, they remain the same, or 15% है they remain the same, or 5% है they remain the same. वो issue नहीं है. Issue क्या है? Again, you break down the problem into different segments. You have to look at the market profit trend for snack sales from vending machines. From vending machines में office vending services है, Vend International है, Candy and Pop Company है, and others हैं. ये क्या है? Vending machine snack sales profit pool evolution. ये different industries के जो वेंडिंग मशीन स्नैक सेल्स है उनका प्रॉफिट एवोल्यूशन है. ये आपकी कंपनी है ऑफिस वेंडिंग मशीन, और ये आपके कंपेटिटर्स हैं वेंड इंटरनेशनल, कैंडी एंड पॉप एंड अदर्स. और ये आपका जो है टोटल प्रॉफिट है बेसिकली फ्रॉम स्नैक सेल्स, और ये इस कंपनी का टोटल प्रॉफिट है फ्रॉम स्नैक सेल्स, एंड दिस इज कैंडी एंड पॉप्स टोटल प्रॉफिट है फ्रॉम स्नैक सेल्स, and these are the other small competitor companies, and they have their combined profit of this much from snack sales. And CAGR stands for compounded annual growth rate. ये नेट पे आप देखिए basically that talks about the evolution or the increase in your growth rate by eliminating the impact of inflation. क्योंकि inflation की वजह से जो है चीज़ें काफ़ी अनअलाइन हो जाती हैं, मिसअलाइनमेंट अकर्स, तो वो रियल पिक्चर इज नॉट गिवन. सो कंपाउंडेड एनुअल ग्रोथ रेट एलिमिनेट्स द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन. बाय एलिमिनेटिंग द इन्फ्लेशनरी इम्पैक्ट, ये आपको बताता है कि कैसे आप ग्रो करते जा रहे हैं. यहाँ पे नेगेटिव आपका था कंपाउंडेड एनुअल ग्रोथ रेट, और यहाँ पे जो आपका कंपेटिटर्स का है वो 29% है, यहाँ पे 15% है, और यहाँ पे 15% है. एंड सिंस दिस इज नेगेटिव ओवर हियर, दिस इज व्हाई यू बीन हायर्ड बाय ऑफिस वेंडिंग सर्विसेज टू फिगर आउट व्हाई देयर प्रॉफिट इज डिक्लाइनिंग डिस्पाइट देयर ग्रोथ. और ग्रोथ कितनी हो रही है इनकी जनाब? 2004 में there has gone way above 40%, close to 50%, and it has declined over a number of years up to 2006 up to 40%. मतलब कि decline भी इतना is not that much compared to decline in their overall compounded annual growth rate, which is -11%, which is significantly low. तो अब उसमें देखना है कि what would be your first conclusion based on this information. Write your answer here. Based on information purchased by IS, let's look at the market profit trend for snack sales from vending machines. तो अब आपने देखा यहाँ पे कि there's some problem that is pertinent to office vending machines only, because had that been an industry related problem, then these competitors revenues would also have been affected by those factors. Since that is not the case, so it means that there's some internal related issue. So we'll type in here internal related causes that might be impacting profits for office vending services. So now let's see the justification, what they have to say. Bain's answer किया, the profit trend of the vending machine sales is positive for the overall market. Therefore, the problem of office vending services profitability is internal. From there we come to know that overall this is 5% over here. The profit trend of the vending machine sales is positive. However, इनका नेगेटिव है, so it means that वही जो मैंने earlier कहा कि if there was a problem that was industry relevant, then these companies should also have been facing the same problem, and these figures should have been negative, but they aren't. Only this is negative. From there you have drawn this conclusion that there's something wrong with their internal matters. We are moving on. Question number 4. What would the next step be to find the root cause of our client's internal profitability problem? Now, क्या हो सकते हैं? Write your answer here. We'll say it's maybe because of employee productivity. Let's see. Technical problems. It also might be because of high cost of production. And so on. Your answer, and their answer is a basic revenue and cost framework enables us to cover all factors impacting profitability and quickly identify the drivers that matter. यहाँ पे you have come up with a very smart way of looking at things real quick, and that is actually when you look at the cost drivers. वो क्या होते हैं? We need to look both at revenues and costs and the components part of each. So now you will see that this all includes these factors that we have mentioned over here. And revenue and cost का framework क्या है? If you look at it, profit is determined through revenue and cost, and revenue includes price and quantity, and cost includes fixed cost and variable cost. So it includes all those things which we have mentioned, and they talk about in order to identify internal issues and problems, you have to focus on both revenues and cost because they cover everything. Moving on to the next question. At this stage, the Bain team would likely start to form its answer fit hypothesis to guide its analysis and help drive to a recommendation in the most efficient manner possible. Now here they are talking about a prediction based on the work that has been done so far. Okay, that if that is the case, then what could be the reason for that? So this is what they call answer first hypothesis. You and your colleague Sarah, a consultant on the team, head to a team room to write your ideas on a whiteboard based on your early insights that you will then share with the team manager. From there you would come up with your own insights on a piece of paper, and you would go backwards from your conclusions that you draw from your analysis so far. And the conclusion that you are likely to draw from your analysis so far is that it is the internal problem. It might be because of cost, might be because of fixed cost or variable cost, which is directly impacting the revenues in terms of declining profits. How would you suggest laying out a hypothesis at this point? Write your answer here. So we create this hypothesis that fixed cost and variable costs are impacting your profit margins. Now let's see what justification they have to give us. A potential hypothesis at this point might be office vending services decline in profitability has been caused by internal factors due to stagnated revenue growth. एक तो ये वजह हो सकती है sales ही नहीं बढ़ रही. That hasn't stayed in line with rising fixed and variable cost. एक तो ये extreme phenomena दे दिया कि your sales are stagnant, they are stalled, they are not going up, whereas your fixed and variable costs, they are going up. ये extreme situation हो गई. And another extreme situation might be your sales are going down, not really stagnant at one place, they are going down, and your cost of production is going up, meaning your variable costs and fixed costs. Remember, an early hypothesis is simply a tool to help guide our analysis, not a final answer. So यहाँ से आपने hypothesis generate करके you create a guiding block for yourself, meaning to see and validate whether this conclusion is logically related or supported by the facts on grounds or not. It will be revised and fine-tuned as we learn about more information later. So suggested framework जो है दोबारा से आपके सामने मौजूद है. अभी तो इसमें उन्होंने कहा कि ये reason हो सकती है. Now you will go and verify if that is really the case. You will consult their annual report and see their annual revenues, annual sales, the level, has it gone up or down or remain stagnant throughout the years, and look at their cost figures, variable costs and fixed cost, to see how they have been performing over the years. Question 6. Given our profitability framework and initial hypothesis, what would be your next steps to investigate further? And what question would you like answered? अच्छा, उसमें क्या चीज़ें हैं जो आप आगे देखेंगे, और what kind of questions that you would ask your senior management, your client's senior management for that. A selection of possible questions is given below. Which of these are most relevant at this stage? तो इन्होंने ये questions आपको दी हैं, so now you come up with the ones that are the most relevant. Has the client launched new products recently? अब आप देख रहे हैं in the background that the revenues are stagnant. This is what you have assumed. Maybe that is the reason. And the profits are declining because of the fixed cost and variable cost going up. So क्या वजह हो सकती है इसकी? What's the logical answer? So again, now here we apply the framework of asking 5 whys. Now, that is the main issue that you think could be possible, and how could it be possible? What could be the main reason for that? उसके लिए you need to come up with a question that is more relevant and logically related. तो वो question क्या हो सकता है? Has the client launched new products recently? क्या ये हो सकता है? और how have competitors' profits evolved? और आपके competitors की जो profits हैं वो कैसे evolve कर रहे हैं, या अब उनके साथ अपने आप को benchmark comparison करके you would see कि how you have performed over the number of years. Or even have our clients' individual snack prices changed recently, or maybe because your competitors changed their prices? Maybe that's the reason. As the volume of our snack sales declined, क्या आपकी sales कम हो गई हैं? Has our client invested heavily in new equipment recently, or had an increase in overhead? क्या जो आप ऑफिस वेंडिंग मशीन है उन्होंने कोई सिग्निफिकेंट कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट कहीं की है जिसकी वजह से उनके एक्सपेंस बढ़ गए हैं? एज अ रिजल्ट बैलेंस शीट में वो राइट ऑफ हो रहे हैं, एज अ रिजल्ट दे आर शोइंग लेस प्रॉफिट. Did the cost of goods sold increase? क्या cost of sales increase हो गई है? And did our client reduce his marketing spend? या फिर आपके client ने जो है marketing and advertising पे spend करना कम कर दिया? As a result, customers are ignoring them. So now, if you look back to the earlier question that we talked about, that was about the company might be facing some problem internally, because externally there are other competitors who are not facing any problem which that company is facing. So it means that there is something wrong with the company internally. So उसके लिए फिर हम क्या देखेंगे? हम देखेंगे कि कंपनी का सेल वॉल्यूम कम हो गया है. Has our client invested heavily in new equipment recently, or did the cost of goods sold increase? तो हम देखेंगे कि ये cost of production तो नहीं इसकी increase हो रही. हम देखेंगे कि कंपनी ने कहीं किसी कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर में तो नहीं इन्वेस्ट किया, कहीं इंटरनली रिलेटेड इश्यूज। तो अब हम देखते हैं कि आंसर इसका लॉजिकली वे ऑफ एक्सप्लेनेशन क्या है बेसिकली। Bain's answer is asking the right question up front will allow the team to quickly determine which of the four potential drivers is responsible for our client's decline in profitability. और वो क्या है? We have laid out what we consider to be the most critical questions at this stage under each of the four drivers of profitability. The interviewer's responses are below. अब वो क्या question है? वही 5 और 6 question उन्होंने पूछा कि has our client invested heavily in new equipment recently? Because we have established that earlier, because there must be something internally which is causing profit decline. So these two questions are internally related as far as the company is concerned. So your questioning has identified quantity to be the key driver of declining profitability. We can now update our hypothesis to show that a reduction in snack sales volume from vending machine is driving the decline in revenues. The team gets together to discuss this early insight. Susan, the team manager, states, based on that insight, वो क्या state करती है? Since the industry's profit pool is growing and gross margins are constant, we can conclude that the overall vending machine market is growing. So वही conclusion के externally तो कोई issue नहीं है. Profit margins भी increase करते जा रहे हैं. Compounded annual growth rate is 5% annually, which means that the industry is experiencing significant growth rates. But the problem is with this company then. Vending machines. और इसका मतलब क्या है? This means that our client must be losing share to their competitors. Our next step is to figure out why. So now here we would figure out why they are losing their share to competitors. और वो दो क्वेश्चन क्या थे मैं फिर से पढ़ दूं आपको. पहला क्वेश्चन ये था, has our client invested heavily in new equipment recently or had an increase in overhead? And the other question was, did the cost of goods sold increase? और उसके जवाब में क्या कहा? That since the industry's profit pool is increasing, gross margins are constant, we can conclude that overall market share is growing. वो तो कोई issue नहीं है. तो issue क्या है? There could be one hypothesis जो उसको उन्होंने check करना further कि this means that our client must be losing share to their competitors. Our next step is to figure out why, right? अगर आपकी कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन भी बढ़ रही है तो इसका मतलब क्या होगा कि अगर आपकी सेल्स स्टैग्नेंट है, सेल्स नहीं बढ़ रही, सेल्स आर स्टिल द सेम, इट मीन्स दैट ईदर योर प्रोडक्ट्स आर नॉट selling so well or your products are selling at very high price. So it means that customers are not coming back to you. So you need to figure out why is that, and who is the main competitor you are losing against the most. So इस तरह के क्वेश्चन जो आपने जो है वो आंसर करने हैं नेक्स्ट स्टेप में. और यहाँ पे आप देखें उन्होंने कैसे उसको एनालाइज किया है. It appears that decreasing snack sales are driving the decline in revenues. तो इस तरह जो है उन्होंने थोड़ा सा वर्कआउट करके आपको समझाया कि बेस्ड ऑन दैट यू वुड गो विद द 5th and 6th आंसर. इस तरह you can continue and go on further to the 7th question, and you can answer that question, and there are 4 remaining questions that you need to answer on your own. My purpose was actually to underline the methodology, that how we analyze issues at hand and how we can apply the learning that we have so far discussed through these lectures basically. And the overall conclusion is that we would apply both deductive and inductive methods to see how we can come up with relevant and logically sound conclusions at every step of the way toward our final assessment of the problem and the recommendations thereof. अच्छा जी, अब हम we go back to our slides. Once you have gone through these questions and all, then you would come back and write your assessment for each question, your justification for each question, and then your assessment of the possible answer choices given by justifying why you argue for that particular option, by keeping in mind this note. As you move on to next question, the answer explanation of the previous question would appear. Please don't take any hint from that as mentioned to you earlier, otherwise your marks will be deducted. You can also suggest something that is not mentioned in the given choices, and this is an individual project which I am handing over to you basically, and you have to do it by being more honest to yourself, and because the main purpose is not on selecting the right answer, is more about understanding the whole thought process. And when you talk about case studies, my brothers and sisters, remember this thing. Case study is all about reading, analyzing, understanding. There is no shortcut around it. You have to do it, you have to read it, you have to read between the lines, you have to draw inferences from the material given to you. You have to read. And one thing more, just like a doctor who's not aware about recent diseases coming up, then when you go to that doctor and he says to you, well, I don't know about this disease, what kind of impression would you get? Would you go to that doctor again? Never. Same is the case with an MBA student. An MBA student who's not quite well aware about the recent business trends taking place outside the books. I'm not talking about the book, I'm talking about the real world actually. You must get first-hand information through primary sources or secondary sources, which is quite in abundance available on the internet. You must understand how things are shaping up, what kind of business challenges, new business phenomena, new business trends, new kinds of products are there, new business market forces are shaping up, and how competition is evolving. Because that is the extra information that is needed for a very fruitful, enriching, and realistic case study analysis. If you don't have any extra information with you, then it would be very difficult. And if you have extra information, that is general knowledge about the prevailing business conditions, circumstances, and the challenges, and how companies are competing with each other, their different promotion campaign, their competitive campaigns, and how they introduce new products, and how they vie for or compete for market leadership positions. So you get to know a lot of stuff that would be so much enriching your thoughts while analyzing a case given to you. So that is really, really important, that you must have extra information always in your mind, which would also help you in applying those concepts across multiple disciplines. You know, that is called multidisciplinary approach. So keep this in your mind, that you must have extra reading, extra learning. You must consult business news on a daily basis, read a good business journal like Business Week for that matter, Harvard Business Review for that matter, Thunderbird Global Business Review for that matter. That will really help you with increasing your knowledge about business world, and that actually translates into your analysis part basically. So with that, we move on to the recap of today's session, and which is our last session though. And in this session, we analyzed a case study question online. We talked about abductive method, then we applied abductive method, and we saw how we can apply both inductive and deductive methods side by side in analyzing the case. With this note, we draw to a conclusion of a series of these 5 lectures, and I conclude with this positive note, that when we expect business students to be a market leader, we expect them to be really insightful of what's going on in their external environment. And for that, business case studies help you develop that analytical skill, because in the future it would be you who are going to be the CEO of a company, COO of the company, CMO of a company, CTO of a company, or CIO of a company. So business case studies help you hone in that skill of mastering the analysis of your business, externally impacting business forces, how to face that challenge and how to overcome that challenge to gain your competitiveness, to retain your competitiveness, and to strengthen your market position in this very competitive world. So I hope you have understood the concept of business related cases in a much more simpler manner. I hope you will remember these key takeaways, and wish you with a happy case study problem solving. Thank you very much.